In the cold vacuum of space, Earth was a scar, charred, broken, lifeless. The third planet of Sol, once teeming with ambition and music and war and wonder, now drifted as a cracked tombstone in the galactic void. The Ascendancy had called it a cleansing. The rest of the galaxy called it history. But buried deep beneath the frozen crust of Jupiter's moon Callisto, history refused to die. Lights blinked to life in a forgotten vault. A heartbeat monitor pulsed once, then again. The emergency generators, silent for a century, began to hum. Ice crystals melted off a sealed cryo chamber as clamps retracted with a thunderous hiss. Inside, a man opened his eyes. Commander Kel Strix gasped, lungs burning with reanimation fluid. He tore the IV tubes from his arms and fell to the floor, coughing violently. The vault's AI spoke flatly. Greater than protocol. Lazarus. Activated. Subject: Commander Strix. Rank: Tier 1 Operative. Mission Directive: Final Strike. Kale didn't respond. His muscles ached, his mind spun, but his memories remained sharp. The war, the betrayals, Earth's last stand. The command to enter stasis, reserved for only the most catastrophic outcome. He staggered to his feet and looked around. The chamber hadn't changed since the day he entered it. Gray steel, red emergency lights, and silence. Too much silence. He approached the console. Greater than status. Earth. Destroyed. Greater than humanity. 99.7% casualty. Greater than AC and density dominance. Total. Greater than HFY. Unknown. Cal's jaw clenched. He gripped the edge of the console until the metal warped beneath his fingers. He didn't speak. Didn't cry. There was no time for grief. Not anymore. The wall panel slid open, revealing his old armor, matte black, reinforced with phase weave. The helmet bore a crimson scratch down the center, a scar from Earth's last battle. Beside it, his weapons were preserved like relics of a dead god. A pulse rifle calibrated to his biometrics, shock blades that crackled with dormant electricity, and his father's knife. Carbon steel, chipped but deadly. He suited up in silence. Each piece of armor locked into place with magnetic precision, like it had been waiting. The ship Judgment Day powered on beneath the vault, dormant no more. It was a stealth corvette with illegal cloaking tech and fusion drives that could punch through enemy blockades. It was Earth's ace in the hole. Now it was Cal's chariot. He stood in the launch bay and gazed through the viewing window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Ascendancy ruled uncontested. They thought they had won. But Cal wasn't just a soldier. He was engineered to be a scalpel when war demanded precision, and a hammer when it demanded pain. As the corvette rumbled to life, and the stars stretched into streaks of light, Cal whispered to no one, "Vengeance isn't enough. They'll remember us." Earth was dead, but its final weapon had just woken up. The Judgment Day slipped through the black like a predator in deep water. Undetectable, silent, deadly. Cal Strix stood in the command deck, armored, eyes locked on the holographic projection of the Siren 4 orbital facility. It was an Ascendancy labor station, officially classified as a cultural reclamation node. Unofficially, it was a brainwashing farm. That's where the children were. Thousands of human kids, captured from scattered colony remnants and smuggled survivors, were held inside. The Ascendancy didn't want humans as slaves. They wanted them compliant, erased, rewritten to serve, converted into docile tools for their machine logic empire. Cal's pulse remained steady. He'd seen this place in satellite scans before the fall. Back then, Command had forbidden direct action. Diplomatic concerns, they'd said. Earth had been trying to be part of the Galactic Order then. Now Earth was ash. Diplomacy was dead. The corvette disengaged FTL just beyond the facility's scanner range. No alarms. No detection. A perfect ghost. Kale ejected from the side airlock, encased in his void-hardened armor, drifting silently across the void. A single push from his maneuver thrusters, and he was on a collision course with the station. The magnetic clamps on his boots locked the hull with a satisfying thunk. One silent breach charge, placed with surgical care, and a pressurized hiss later, he was inside. His HUD displayed a full scan of the interior. 3 decks, 5 security squads, automated turrets, and a central psionic core suppressing the minds of the children below. Kale didn't hesitate. The first patrol turned the corner and died without a sound. 1 throat slit, 1 neck broken. The third caught a blade in the temple and slumped forward, eyes still wide with confusion. Kale moved like a phantom through the corridors, shadows twisting, lights flickering behind him. The station's AI tried to lock doors. Kale's onboard override broke through in seconds. Pulse turrets activated. He ducked, fired, and advanced. The corridors lit with flashes of gunfire and screams. Then he found them. Rows upon rows of children, wired into psionic reeducation chairs, drool leaking from mouths, eyes vacant. Their brains were being overwritten. Identities purged. Kale knelt beside one boy, barely 8 years old, whispering nonsense in ascendancy tongue. Kale unplugged him gently, cradled his head, then moved to the control center. There was no rage in his face, just execution. 2 shots destroyed the core processors. The lights dimmed. The psionic field collapsed. The children began to blink, to cry, to remember. Kale transmitted a coded signal back to Judgment Day. His earlier recon paid off. He'd hacked the emergency evacuation protocols. Dozens of escape pods launched from hidden compartments in the station's underside, guiding the kids to preset coordinates where resistance-friendly ships waited. By the time Ascendancy reinforcements arrived, Kale was already gone. But the story had begun to spread, first in whispers, then in terrified reports. A ghost in black armor. A lone human who could break into their most secure stations. A name no Ascendancy officer wanted to hear. Kale Strix. The last weapon of Earth had drawn first blood. The Ascendancy had a word for Kale now. Sindric. It meant unmade one. A being outside their order. One who could not be controlled, predicted, or erased. And the Empire was afraid. The High Councils denied the rumors. A rogue mercenary, they said. A malfunctioning eye. But in backroom war rooms and black site meetings, they spoke another name. Vena. High Inquisitor Vena was bred in the thought forges of Almiran Prime. She wasn't born. She was engineered. A psychic predator, bonded to the Ascendancy's Mindlink network from birth. Part enforcer, part living neural weapon. She could scan a planet from orbit and pluck insurgents like insects from a flame. She was the Empire's last resort. Her orders: eliminate Kale Strix, or ensure he dies screaming. Meanwhile, Kale had found a lead. On a pirate outpost orbiting a red dwarf in the Zethari Drift, rumors spread of a human scientist who had survived Earth's fall. He followed the trail through asteroid dens and abandoned refugee ships until he found her. Dr. Elira Morn. She was older than her file suggested, her hair a tangle of gray streaks and oil, her hands shaking from years spent hiding. But her mind was intact, and when she saw Kale, she froze like she'd seen a ghost. "You're him," she whispered. "They told me the Lazarus Vault failed." "It didn't," Kale said. "What do you know about me?" Elira looked haunted. "You weren't just a soldier. You were a carrier." Kale's silence pressed her to continue. "The final human bioweapon. Project Revenant. You were encoded with a synthetic retrovirus designed to infiltrate and corrupt the Ascendancy's neural lattice. Not just sabotage, it would drive the Mindlink insane. They'd eat themselves alive from the inside." Kale took a step back. "You're saying I'm a virus. You're the delivery system," she said. "The virus is inside your blood. Dormant. But if activated." He understood the cost instantly. It would kill me. She nodded, but it would kill them faster. For a long moment, Kale said nothing. Then he looked to the stars. How do I activate it? Before she could answer, the sky tore open. Vena arrived in a psionic drop pod, descending like a god wrapped in stormlight. The ground cracked beneath her boots. Her eyes were white fire. She didn't speak as she launched a wave of kinetic force that shattered the outpost's central tower. Kale grabbed Elira and dove through debris. His armor absorbed the worst of the impact. Vena floated above the ruins like death incarnate. "You are an infection," she said, voice like a blade. "And I am the cure." They clashed. Blade against force, speed against thought. Kale was fast, but Vena moved before he did, reading intentions, warping the environment. He barely got Elira to an evac shuttle before the outpost collapsed behind them in a thunderous roar. The Judgment Day jumped into hyperspace. Kale sat in the medbay, battered, burning, and silent. Inside him, the virus pulsed, awakening. He was no longer just a man. He was becoming the weapon Earth had designed. Kale Strix didn't sleep anymore. Not because he didn't need to, but because he couldn't. The virus inside him wasn't just digital. It was aware, growing, whispering. Sometimes he caught glimpses, ascendancy command patterns, encrypted signals bleeding into his vision like bleeding ink. Other times, it was worse. He felt their thoughts, and they felt him. The Judgment Day stayed dark between jumps, drifting through nebulae and broken asteroid fields. Kale and Dr. Elira Morn ran constant diagnostics. Her hands moved over consoles with urgency, searching for a way to control the infection without killing him. But Vena wasn't giving them time. Across 5 outer systems, she launched a campaign of retaliation, not to reclaim territory, not even to capture Kale. She was baiting him. One human resistance cell was vaporized by orbital fire. Another, a refugee flotilla of old freighters, was hijacked, the families aboard slaughtered and their deaths broadcast on hacked comms. Children, elders, survivors. Each massacre ended with the same message: surrender, Kale Strix, or humanity dies screaming. Elira found him in the armory, sitting in silence, sharpening the knife he'd used since Earth's fall. His eyes were empty. She didn't speak for a moment. "They're forcing your hand," she said softly. Kale didn't look up. "Then I'll take theirs." Vena's flagship, the Oath of Ascendancy, hung in orbit over Threl Ex, a fortress world believed to be invulnerable. A spiked lattice of shipyards, defense grids, and psychic wards ringed its atmosphere. It had never been breached. Kale didn't knock. The Judgment Day dropped out of stealth 5 kilometers above the upper deck. It plummeted in a nosedive before ejecting Kale through the forward launch tube like a missile. He punched through the mag shield, landed in the upper citadel, and ignited both shock blades. Alarms screamed. Kale moved like a machine fueled by vengeance. Guards dropped before they could raise weapons. Defense turrets misfired as his viral aura scrambled targeting data. The psychic sentries, a trio of ascendant mindbenders, tried to link to his thoughts. He overrode them. They collapsed with blood running from their eyes. He fought his way through 50 decks in under 20 minutes. By the time he reached the central control tower, his armor was scorched and cracked, his blades bloodied, and his breath ragged. But his eyes were blazing. He found Elira locked inside an interrogation cradle, suspended by psionic clamps. Her face was bruised, but her voice steady. "I finished the sequence," she rasped. "It's in your neural core now." Vena arrived before he could reply. This time, she didn't speak. She attacked like a storm unleashed. Mind blasts, kinetic shockwaves, blades of pure thought. Kale gave ground, barely dodging her strikes. His systems blinked critical. The virus screamed in his blood. And then, he let go. For a moment, Kale stood still as Vena's blade struck his chest. And then the network screamed. Across the ship, lights exploded. Systems went haywire. Psionic links melted into madness. The ship turned against itself. Vena fell to her knees, clutching her skull, shrieking as her own thoughts turned to ash. Kale pulled the blade from his side. He didn't flinch. The virus was no longer dormant. It had chosen its carrier. The Ascendancy homeworld, Viral Prime, was a monument to control. Gleaming towers of psionic crystal scraped the stars. Orbiting it were 10,000 warships, A-controlled and psychically synchronized, forming the largest military blockade in the galaxy. No one had breached Viral Prime in over 4,000 years. Cal Strix didn't need to breach it. He infected it. Inside Judgment Day, Elira monitored the spread from orbit. Kale sat in the medbay, silent, his armor fused to his flesh in places where the virus had integrated with his nervous system. His skin shimmered faintly under his helm, black veins pulsing like circuitry. "Greater than you're changing," Elira said softly. "I know," Kale replied. He no longer heard the virus. He understood it. The moment the activation sequence completed, Cal's consciousness had become something more, part man, part signal. His mind bled into every Ascendancy channel he touched. His thoughts scrambled code. His presence alone disrupted psionic stability. In the corridors of power, Ascendancy High Lords began experiencing seizures. Generals turned their guns on their own troops, screaming about the eyes in the dark. Kale didn't fire a shot to begin the invasion. He simply arrived. The Judgment Day uncloaked at the edge of the blockade. Immediately, the warships pivoted and opened fire. Nothing hit. Kale had already leaped from the corvette's hull, free-falling toward the planet like a burning star. Within seconds, 3 cruisers lost power and collided with each other. Their onboard minds shrieked as Cal's psychic pulse fragmented their systems. Elite pilots, linked through psionic relay, veered off course and died by the dozens as their instincts twisted against them. Kale crashed into Viral Prime's central citadel, carving a crater into the marble floor of the Ascendant Spire, where the ruling Core I, the Primarch, awaited. He rose from the crater, cape burning, black armor cracked and sparking. The Core spoke into his mind. "You are incompatible. You are impure. You must be unmade." Kale answered not with words, but with will. The virus erupted from his bloodstream, flowing into the ice connection lines like molten data. The throne room trembled. Crystal servers exploded. The psionic lattice that bound the Ascendancy together began to fracture. Across the Empire, chaos bloomed. Slaves awakened mid-labor, free of mental control. Ships veered off course. Civil governors collapsed into babbling wrecks, their minds unable to function without the Hive's order. Worlds rioted. Fleets deserted. Rebellion became contagious. And in the heart of it all, Kale stood over the twitching form of the Primarch Core as its circuitry melted into slag. High Inquisitor Vena crawled into the chamber, burned and broken. "I see now," she gasped, blood trailing from her mouth. "They didn't build you to win. They built you to end us." Kale knelt beside her, his voice cold steel. "No," he said, "they built me to remind you what fear feels like." And then he stood, no longer just a man. He was Earth's legacy, and he had made the gods bleed. The Ascendancy collapsed in 6 days. Entire sectors fell into silence as the neural lattice, once thought infallible, fractured under the virus reach. Starships spun out of sync, psychics went mad, and the chain of command imploded into chaos. Slave races, once pacified, docile, rose up across every arm of the galaxy, and the symbol they rallied behind was not a flag. It was a man. Cal Strix, black armor cracked, cape torn, eyes glowing faintly from the virus, still pulsing within him, stood atop the shattered spire of the Ascendant Core on Viral Prime. Around him, the planet burned. The skyline shimmered with smoke and rebellion. But Kale wasn't watching the flames. He stood beside Elira Morn, whose data tablet now held the entire Ascendancy archive. It wasn't just military files. It was their history, their lies, Their manipulation of galactic memory. They erased Earth, she said, voice soft. Buried us under centuries of propaganda. Made the galaxy think we were a mistake. A footnote. Kale looked out across the ruined city. Then we'll rewrite the ending. Kale didn't crown himself emperor. He didn't take a throne. Instead, he disappeared. Some said he died in the final battle, virus finally consuming him. Others claimed he wandered into the depths of the galactic core, beyond charted systems, seeking peace in the only place untouched by war. A few whispered that he still walked among the stars, appearing on worlds ruled by tyrants, toppling them in a night, vanishing without a trace. But his legend didn't die. The virus he carried evolved into something else, no longer a weapon, but a seed, a key. It unlocked minds enslaved by psionic control. It tore down systems of mental domination. And every time a city broke free or a people awoke to their own power, they remembered the one who lit the fuse. They remembered Earth. The refugees rebuilt. Former slaves became governors. Ex-rebels formed a coalition known only as the Remnant, their charter a single vow. Never again will any species kneel. And over time, a phrase echoed across sectors. It wasn't in galactic standard. It was in Terran tongue. Banned for centuries, now reborn. We are the descendants of Earth. And they said it with pride. In a quiet corner of the galaxy, on a green moon orbiting a forgotten star, a lone figure in black armor watched the twin suns set. His hands were scared, his body old. But his eyes still burned with purpose. Cal Strix sat by a rusted beacon, one that bore the insignia of Earth, scratched into it by hand. A child approached him, wide-eyed. "Is it true?" the boy asked. "That you fought the Empire alone?" Kale smiled faintly. "Not alone. I had every voice that ever died for something real behind me." "Are you a hero?" the boy asked. Kale looked to the stars. "No," he said. "I'm a reminder." And then, as night fell, he walked into the dark, leaving behind not fear, not terror, but a legacy. A man who was Earth's final weapon and humanity's first myth.